As President Biden prepares to spar with Trump, the White House is still trying to discredit unedited footage of our commander-in-chief. Biden's team is desperately trying to convince voters that he is fit to lead. One problem: recent polls suggest Americans are not so sure. Lucas Tomlinson is live at the White House with more details. Lucas.
That's right, Kaylee. The White House has a new term for those viral videos of the president, one that you will not find in the dictionary. Here's Karine Jean-Pierre here at the White House yesterday.
We've been calling it cheap fakes. That is something that came directly from the media outlets and calling it that, the fact checkers and calling it that. And so we're certainly going to be really clear about that as well and calling it out from where we are, from where we stand.
Now, a recent Fox News poll said, do you think Joe Biden has the mental soundness to effectively serve as president or not? 41% yes. 57% of majority said no. Now, here was Donald Trump at a rally in Wisconsin yesterday.
Joe Biden is humiliating our country on the world stage. He's actually humiliating us. You saw what happened this weekend. It's turning the United States into a total joke all over the world. First, he wandered off the G7 in Europe, the stage. He looked like he didn't know where the hell he was.
Here at the White House yesterday, President Biden appeared to forget the name of his own DHS chief.
My name's Joe Biden. I'm Jill Biden's husband. Thanks to all the members of Congress and Homeland Security Secretary. I'm not sure I'm going to introduce you all the way. But all kidding aside.
Now, President Biden is in Rehoboth Beach today. Tomorrow, he heads to Camp David to spend about a week preparing for his first debate with former President Donald Trump. That debate now about a week away. Kaylee?
Lucas, 1 week, but no one is counting except we all are. Thank you very much. All right, so the White House trying very hard to make us not believe what we can see with our very eyes with unedited footage. We not only have the footage, Harris, we have the Robert Hur report. Robert Hur had hours to sit before President Biden. Robert Hur said this: he suffers from diminished faculties and advancing age. He did not remember when he was vice president. He did not remember even with several years when his son, Beau, died. He's well-meaning, an elderly old man with a poor memory. His memory appeared hazy. This is Robert Hur. I know the campaign tried to call him a MAGA prosecutor, but he's Robert Hur.
Well, if you couldn't charge him based on all those things, how in the world is he running the country?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, if you can't even adjudicate a case against the man based on classified documents that we know he took as a senator because he's got a bad memory or you know, a dislocation with the facts or whatever the situation is for him and his mental acuity in those moments, we need to hear those tapes because whatever they've scrubbed out, and even the redactions from the transcript tell us a lot, the ums and the ahs, whatever that they took out. We need to be able to hear how he processes in real time, because I think it's fair to have some real questions now, just based on that. And again, I said this earlier on The Focus, irrespective of these recent days, we already had enough of this in terms of a video that was unedited. I know the White House has chosen to fight about these last few clips of him. Well, then make it stop happening. The gibberish that he just spit out yesterday, make it stop happening.
Yeah.
And then it won't be a thing. But yeah, my greatest question is if Robert Hur really saw the facts before him were, you know, pale in comparison to the man who was deficient, then how is that same deficiency enough to lead the country?
Yeah, you know, George, just thinking from a communication strategy, for a while they tried to go with, yes, he's old, but he's wise. I think that's a better strategy. Look, does he mess up? Does he slip sometimes? Sure, but he has wisdom and decades of experience. Instead, they're trying to deny reality, deny tapes exist, but the reality they're forgetting about is polling. It's not just the Fox poll. We have the ABC poll. Who do you think is too old? Biden, 28%, Trump, 2%. The NBC poll, who has the necessary mental and physical help? Biden, 26%, Trump, 45%. So this is the reality that they need to reckon with, the American people's reality.
Absolutely. I think this is a top three issue. I've said from the beginning, it's going to come down to three I's: immigration, inflation, and intelligibility. And regretfully, Biden is failing on all three. you know, the commander-in-chief is supposed to instill confidence and respect, not only domestically among political opponents, but abroad. And, you know, whether it's falling on the stage in front of Air Force Academy graduates or, you know, being a laughingstock abroad, this is a serious concern that I think all American voters are going to take into consideration when they go into the ballot box. But I think about the debate, which I think is next week, and I think about Ronald Reagan in 1984 when he was 74, and he made light and used humor in such a brilliant way to disarm instantaneously the questions of age and experience by questioning Walter Mondale's youth and inexperience. And people loved it. Even he laughed. But I can't see President Biden pulling off that level of wit or humor on the stage. And I think the debate is going to be very telling this early on. Clearly, he tried to schedule it earlier to try to avoid the political fallout, because I think it's highly foreseeable he will have further mishaps as we get closer to Election Day.
Yeah, fantastic parallel to someone owning age. But to your point, I don't know if Biden can execute that. Emily, to George's point, the day of reckoning's coming, and it's debate day, and expectations are admittedly very low. Do you think Biden can hop over them? Can he reverse the perception of the American people?
No, I don't think so, because the aggregate is what's so important here. This isn't like when you're watching a movie about some cheating spouse and, you know, it's one time, oh, where were you? I was late. I had to pick up the kids and do an errand, and okay, that explains it. Well, when you're watching that movie and there's a million times and a million lies and a million questions, it gets exhausting and Americans can see right through it. I think back to, remember Madonna's spokesperson who was so awesome, the one in the 90s and through the 2000s?
Oh, yeah.
She was incredible, and she always told it like it is. She would have answers back to the press like, yeah, wouldn't you? What do you think? Why are you asking me that? And I'm not asking for that kind of, you know, short temper to come out of Karine Jean-Pierre, but I think there could be a shaping here, which is acknowledging the 50 years of service this president has had, while also saying, look, you know, people need a little bit of help sometimes. What's wrong with having you know, assistance or whatever? Like, you can own it, right? But I think to your point, it's like a cruise ship trying to turn around and pull a U-turn. It is just too late for them to reverse course. It is too late because the gaffes are too big. They're not gaffes anymore.
And he doesn't have side thrusters like some of those larger cruise ships.
That's right.
Oh, my goodness.
He just doesn't have those faculties. But, you know, you ask a great question. You can't have both things. You can't be mentally deficient and then also be expected to run the country. And you're absolutely right about that. And that's what was so stark to me during, you know, when Robert Hur gave us that report. And, you know, that's what elections are for, and that's what people are paying attention to. I don't think we're going to see the president for the next week. I think that they have to rest him. I think they have to juice him up. I think there are IVs. I think there's a hyperbaric chamber. I'm not a doctor, but I should be, because I think I would be a much better caregiver than what he's receiving right now, because I go back and forth. On one hand, I go, this is elder abuse. Like, the people around him who are profiting from his presidency, who either want the trappings of power or the power itself, shame on them for propping him up and pulling the string and filling him with God knows what during the State of the Union speech. On the other hand, I go, you know what? He's also a morally compromised power monger, and he also is to blame for this. But those aspects of his being, they sort of add up to someone who should not be president of the United States, but that is for voters to decide. And we don't have cheap fakes. We have the facts. And it is such an insult to voters to say you cannot trust your own eyes, you can't trust your senses, because they are being presented with the truth.
Boom.
Well,
right.
He is sequestered at Camp David. Who knows what's going on? I got to believe there's at least a Red Bull, but who knows?
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.